So Mario, I did some digging. Now that I could two-hand this donut. I told Mario before we started, I was like, I'm gonna eat this donut like Kobayashi. That's right, I did that last part.
Good man, that's me the intro.
I was thinking about Bill's situation next year, right? Because you have Matt Milano returning back from injury. You got
Oh, you heard this before.
Yeah, I know, right? Just go back to 2020. You know, like, definitely seen this before. So you have Matt Milano returning from injury. You got Amari Cooper on the team. You've got, injuries at the receiver position. Keon's been out. Like, there's a lot going on, like an awful lot. So, question one is, where do we start, right? Like, what's the most pressing thing that we should talk about right away?
I think Matt Milano is on a lot of people's minds. And
Okay.
I think just a little bit, tiny bit down the line is Amari Cooper.
Okay.
Depending on how he could produce, coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
So, now, the first thing that I want you to bestow upon #Nation was, we talk about timing is everything in the NFL.
Yeah, big time.
There was a reason that the Buffalo Bills decided to activate Milano's window, the 21-day, before the bye. Now, why is that relevant for it to happen before the bye?
So first off, if you're going to go look this up, good luck. Okay? Good luck. So when talking about that 21-day window, right, the reason the Bills activated Milano before the window was because the bye week doesn't count against the window. Okay, so effectively they call it the 21-day window, but it's not really 21 days, right? When the bye week's there, because the 21-day window allows a player returning from IR to practice with the team. Is the team practicing during the bye week?
Sometimes no.
Right? No. So if the team doesn't practice during the bye week, then that time doesn't count against Milano. So what it did do was allowed him to go out, practice with the team for KC, rest for a full week, and now return. So that's why you're seeing the media talk about his possible return date, because I think some of the media are like, well, I don't really know what the rule on that is. You will not find it if you Google it. You have to go into the collective bargaining agreement, and I'm sure the Bills got confirmation from the league for activating him, because it makes no sense why to activate him, his 21-day window, for the KC game to lose a week of practice.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
And then there's probably like you said, there's probably a loophole that is in the CBA for them to do that. We're like, listen, if a player's activated for the bye, what does that mean? Well, in Lua, it probably has like a subsection. If your team is not holding official practices, then those won't count against the player, and this and that and the third. So it's interesting that they would do that. And, depending on the success of Milano after this, it might be something that more teams do. Be like, hey, listen, our bye week's in bye week 7. We're going to IR you for 4 weeks here. You come back right before the bye. We activate your 21-day window, and then here's what we do.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So this bonus time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It really is a heady play, because again, this information is not freely available, so I don't know how many times teams have figured this out.
Yeah.
I would imagine the Bills got confirmation from the league that that's how that rule, the intent of that rule, is going to be interpreted. Because otherwise, it could be the Kansas City game. Can't activate him during the bye week. Right? I mean, in theory, they could, right? They could activate, terminate his window, put him on the active roster. But that's the thing, is once this 21-day window is over, he either needs to be on the roster or he's IR'd the rest of the season. So this is not a we'll just dip our toes and just see how it is. This is the move.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're now under the clock, or under the gun to make that move. So, it doesn't make sense to activate him unless the bye week doesn't count against the 21-day window. So I think it's real fascinating. Let him do some team practice, let him rest, come back, because otherwise he'd have to come back for San Fran? Is that the game coming back to the bye week?
I believe so, yeah.
And then Detroit after that?
San Fran, Detroit, Rams, I think.
Yikes.
They're home. I mean, San Fran's good, they're at home. And then they go 2 dome teams.
Right.
So,
in cold weather.
well,
Let's go.
it's not really LA, but
Well, I'm just saying, yeah.
It is fascinating to see and how some of them roster moves are working, and then we'll have to have a discussion about what happens when he is elevated, who goes down,
Right.
What's going to be the you just put Spectre on IR, I believe,
Okay.
but I can't remember if you did a corresponding move for that anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
I'm sure
I don't
the
remember.
comment section will let us know as far as for game day. I mean, obviously they want to have a full roster for game day, but that leads us into Amari Cooper. What happens with Amari Cooper next year? Obviously, it's been well documented that the Cleveland Browns were thinking about moving Cooper way before, even before the draft.
Right.
Because that's the only way you restructure his contract.
Is if you're planning on
moving him, because
Right.
then you're telling the other team, listen, we're taking most of the hit on this. What are you going to pay for him for the year?
Mhm.
Yada, 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 and all such stuff. And the Buffalo Bills ended up getting a very, very cheap player that they needed essentially in their offense, but he's 30.
Yeah.
What does that mean for receivers when they turn 30? Because he hasn't really aged like a 30-year-old.
Right.
He's played majority of his games in his career. He's been in for a few, according to my recollection.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's very rarely missed time.
Doesn't open his mouth.
Nope.
Seems like he's been immersed in the culture in Buffalo,
Mhm.
especially the locker room.
Yep.
He's gone through the Josh Allen experience. So
I would just love to know what that first pass was like. Right? Like, whoa, wait a minute. Where did this thing come from?
it was probably like the first time you ate Paul's Donuts.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Glorious. Glorious.
I didn't expect you to hit me like this.
Speaking of footballs, those things are huge. I miss ball is so much.
Hey,
Hey, maybe we should stop.
hey.
Maybe we'll stop. So, I know, you're mentioning Cooper here, right?
Mm-hmm. Contract
Financially, well, yeah, it is a contract year for
Technically.
him, technically, right? Even though he's got like 87 void years on the back of his deal, that doesn't impact Buffalo at all. But Cooper, at age 30, is in a similar boat to Diggs, right? Where do you take the 1 year, 2 year contracts, or do you say I'm gonna need something bigger? And I think a lot of that depends on the success of the Bills this season, right? So how successful are the Bills going to be versus how many years is Cooper going to get off of that success? So, primary question for me is Cooper worth the probably $17 million a year that he would get? Comparables, right? Let's talk comparables. Other players in that situation, what deals did they sign? At age 30, Mike Williams signed 2 for 41.
Yeah.
Around that age, what was it? Tyler Lockett was, I think, 2 for 38-ish.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. Right around that 16, 17, $18 million range is probably where it is. But Cooper, I think the goal is to get a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
I don't think anything will really be structured of 4 real years, right? It'll be probably 2 to 3 with a void year, right?
Yeah, you know what? Bean has been very, very strategic when he goes through his voided years. Like, he's not a Howie Roseman. Like, Roseman built in, like,
Yeah.
he'll
There's some problem children on those
if
deals.
you look at Philly, like, a lot of those top 10 contracts have some of them have at least 3 of those top 10 deals. And it's like, that's a lot of money. You probably feel you're going to be in a rebuild at that point. But it's one of those things where Bean doesn't want to build a lot of void years into his deals because he wants sustained success. And they tend to get rid of players, not get rid of, but allow them to test the market
Right.
before the rest of the league knows that they're done.
Sure.
Now, what he was able to do with, Poyer and Trey White, obviously one due to age, one due to injury. Those guys were highly coveted because of maybe the system. I'm not saying they're great; they're not great players,
Right.
but Poyer actually should have not been on the Buffalo Bills a year prior because you already got the best years out of him. Trey was just unfortunate for Trey. The Rams thought they were getting a lockdown corner, and that's what he never was.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then you look at Gabe Davis struggling down in Jacksonville, and he ended up getting hurt. And then the aforementioned Diggs, which probably the worst luck in the world. Depending on, regardless of how you feel about Diggs, the guy signed a 1-year deal so we can hit the free agent market next year. That's he tears his ACL.
1 year, $22 million.
Yeah, and then tears his ACL because he wanted to test the market.
Well, he trusted himself.
Yeah, at 31 though, off an ACL.
Yeah, no way. Right.
It's going to be tough.
Good money deals are behind him, but you look at Cooper. Cooper's been primarily healthy, and you have to ask yourself, will the Diggs deal impact what Cooper wants? Because maybe Cooper would say, you know what? You want to roll it back for 15 mil this year? Let's do it. Right? Like, you want to roll it back? Let's run it back. Because I'll still be 31. If I still put up a relatively good season, if we win a championship, I'm now a Super Bowl winning wide receiver, right? And that's, I think, where a lot of the bet happens.
That's where you won't afford it.
Right. I agree with that.
I think, because he will be even more coveted even at 31. That's interesting because we then get into the butterfly effect where if you want to re-sign Cooper, that's great. That's awesome. We want Cooper back. He has an impact on the offense.
Yeah.
Awesome. What does that mean for Greg Rousseau?
Oh, so I'm glad you brought this up. I do want to do a stat correction real quick. I said Tyler Lockett signed for 38. It was 29. So what I was thinking was I got it confused with the Brandon Cooks deal. Brandon Cooks signed 2-year, 38, 39.
Yeah, you can't really count that though. Look where he signed.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So remember all the money all the Bills fans are waiting to get when we would get rid of this dead money from Diggs?
Yeah,
Ready?
sorry. Don't listen.
Gotcha, bitch. That money, part of it, a big chunk of it, Rousseau's 5th-year option is next year.
Yes.
It's almost $14 million.
Not bad.
Which isn't bad. Now,
if he plays on it.
If he plays on it. But we've seen Buffalo do this before.
Yeah.
Pick up the option because it's guaranteed, but it does give you the time to restructure.
Yes.
Right? Or to negotiate an extension. You're telling the player, we want you here, right? Like Kaiir Elam, the Bills could exercise his option next year. They won't, but they could, but they won't. Different circumstance, right?
Yeah.
So they picked up Rousseau's 5th-year option, so he's on the books for about $14 million next year.
Yeah.
You figure in, well, let's assume Amari Cooper is $16-17 million, right? I guess the real question is Amari Cooper Mike Evans? Are they equal? Because if they're equal, then he's a $20 million player. But if you see Mike Evans as
a Super Bowl champion, he's a $20 million.
I think that's probably the push there, right?
But here's the craziest part about it.
It'll be impossible to separate the argument of did you win a Super Bowl? Did the trade for Amari Cooper win you a Super Bowl? Like that becomes the argument.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, you got a 53-man roster you can assemble. One guy. Yeah, but people talk about that like Allen's the one guy that's going to get it done for.
Yeah.
Here's my thought on the whole thing, because there's another name we're not mentioning that I think is very vital to the success of the Buffalo Bills and all this contract talk that we're kind of looking ahead to. Okay. If you win a Super Bowl, both Rousseau and Cooper will cost more. I understand that.
Yep.
However, if you lose, or if you can make a good run, let's say you go, I'd say running it back, you're not going to get a hometown discount, but those players will want to be here in the interim. They'll want to be here. Okay, so maybe Cooper signs a 2-year, just kind of play with Allen because he's still in his prime. But best case scenario. However, if they win, I believe Von Miller will retire, and in his retirement,
That's a problem.
opens up another can of worms as far as the salary cap.
Big time. That's a
depending,
problem.
depending on how he wants to go out and leave the Bills. Because I guarantee, like, it's why would he play another year?
So
What's the point?
I think that's a great point. So retirement players with a lot of signing bonus money, like a lot of bonus money, big problem.
Not everybody is Drew Brees, guys.
Yeah, big problem. Big problem. So if Vaughn is electing to retire, would Vaughn do a favor for the Bills? I don't know. I don't know if he feels like he would owe it to the team.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's like
retiring players that have huge signing bonus money, big problems with the salary cap because it just explodes a bomb of dead money, typically, right? Unless that money's returned, which is crazy
for a player to do
that, right?
Yeah, but over his career, I believe he's earned ridiculous amount. But like,
well, I'm going to disagree with you on Rousseau will want to stay. I'm going to disagree. If they lose.
You think he's more of a Lloyd?
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Floyd? What's his name?
Yeah, Leonard Floyd. Yeah, no. I'm not going that direction. I think there is something to be said for a player who only knows playoff football. Rousseau has never not made the playoffs. He's only known playoff football. That's it. Of course, the goal is to get to a Super Bowl. If the Bills go to a Super Bowl, he will have checked off the list. I got to play in the Super Bowl, right? Winning the Super Bowl, different list.
Yes.
But he only knows playoff football. At some point, you look at it and say, well, you don't go to the playoffs every year? I mean, look around him. Who on this defense hasn't been a perennial playoff player? Look around him. Amari Cooper, but is he going to have any impact on Greg Rousseau? No. So I think there's something to be said for the ignorance of bliss when it comes to being a playoff football team. Yeah. I'm not saying that he feels that way. I'm saying that young players sometimes get disillusioned by the fact that, we make the playoffs every year. What are you talking about?
His agent feels that way. His agent's going to go, listen, you're going to be the most sought-after defensive end in football.
Yeah, he's been to the playoffs every single year. And I'll be honest with you, like, if you look at his comparables, like, Rashawn Gary is probably his comparable. And
not Crosby?
No.
Crosby's a lot better.
Advanced stats say Crosby's a much better pass rusher.
Oh, I thought you were talking about size and strength and speed and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I don't want to pay him $100 million. I don't want to do that. Do you want to do that?
I would rather pay him than Vaughn.
So,
I mean, you've already got your insurance policy by extending AJ Epinesa.
So here's
signing AJ Epinesa.
So here's where you are, right? Yes. Let's not forget that Greg Rousseau is also younger than all of these players. Okay. Draymond Jones signed 3 for 51. Montez Sweat 4 for 98.
He went to the Bears.
Yeah, he did go to the Bears. And Rashawn Gary, I think, was in the 50s. But effectively, you're looking at complaining about $14 million for Greg Rousseau. Greg Rousseau could get $25 million a year on the market.
Easily.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, right? You're talking about, I can't wait to get this money back from Diggs. You have to make a decision, right? I think once you exercise his option next year, you re-sign Cooper so you can draft a defensive end, right?
And
you just run the 5th-year option on Rousseau, and then you just draft another defensive end in the first round.
No,
just straight
no. And you're literally going against your own beliefs.
I know.
Because if you draft a defensive end outside of the top 10,
I know what this looks like.
They're abysmal.
I know what this looks like. Rousseau took 3 years to be a very viable defensive end to be.
Would you agree that it's easier to draft? Let me rephrase. Would you agree that late first round receivers have done better than late round defensive ends in the NFL?
Oh. Okay. Quick caveat. A lot more wide receivers drafted than defensive ends. Right? A lot more.
Well, I'll just talk about, the average. I'll sum it up for you. In the short term, yes. In the long term, no.
Right.
So, what do you guys think?